Hi, I'm Charles Cadell and welcome to K12Press. This is going to be a video tutorial on how to simply set up the Events calendar plugin for its initial settings for your website. There's a few of these little details that are kind of good to know. You will tweak these as your site grows, and especially if there's multiple campuses adding events under one umbrella here. But I'm going to show you a few things that you need to know just to get set up and started. So everything that you're going to edit within the settings is going to be in the dashboard of your WordPress website. So you're going to hover over this top corner once you're logged into the website and just click Dashboard. Once you've had the plugin installed for the events calendar, you're just going to hover over Events here and you're going to go down to Settings. Now, most of what we're going to be working on today is going to be in this General Settings tab. There's a few other things that go into a lot more detail, and we'll have to do separate tutorials for that. That includes imports, because that's an important thing. Being able to import from existing Google calendars and things that you guys have used out there with your Outlook calendars and things like that, that's important. But for today in this tutorial, we're just going to go into the overall general settings. So let's scroll down and start looking to some of these settings here. So the events URL slug. So when you go to your website, whatever.org or .com/events, you're going to get a general calendar that has all your events. Now, sometimes for some of the school districts that I've done in the past, I've changed this slug to be calendar. And then on that page, you would have the main event calendar that lists out everything in the events on the calendar. But then you would also have, your downloadable PDF calendars or things that people want to save that, are those general calendars that we put out every year that have the big dates like, start of school, end of school, Christmas break, things like that. And that kind of helps to be able to point everybody in the right directions. But you may decide that you want to keep those printable calendars on a calendar page by itself and then keep the events separate. Whatever you're wanting to do, this is where you can change the event slug, and that helps out with SEO as well, how it indexes your website. But if you want to keep calendars, like your district's calendars, separate from the events calendars, then keep it events here and it won't conflict. Single event URL slug, same thing. You have the event slug, but then if you notice down here, you have event and then the post name. That's how you can direct people directly to a URL of that singular event. I'm going to keep that as is for now. Now, here's one thing that I would like you to do is cache your month view and HTML transients. This is important. So the events calendar module is actually probably one of the heavier plugins that we have on your WordPress website. And depending on how much it's used and how many how many campuses in your district are using that calendar, you can get hundreds upon hundreds of events going on in here, and it can bog down your website if you're not careful. So one good idea is to go ahead and check and make sure this is checked to be able to cache. That will make sure that, when people come to your website, they're not regenerating the events each and every time. They're getting a cached version of that, which will actually make your page speed a little bit faster. So one thing that you're looking at here is move to trash events older than. So here's the deal. This is probably the biggest issue I've had in the past, is we would do imports for athletic events that would bring in, hundreds of different events. And then as those events would go away, well, they would stay on the website to where you could go back and you could see, hey, what were the events last month? I would select to do this to where every 3 months, every quarter or so, that this is going to trash those events older than that. Now, this is separate from when you have reoccurring events. Reoccurring events are things that you can set up as long as you have the premium plugins from the K12Press plugin library. You can set up reoccurring events, and this won't affect that. Those will be generated as new events going forward. But anything older than 3 months, we want to remove. And this is going to remove if you have a multi-site network from the top down. So each individual campus is going to be the same way. They do not all have their own general settings here if you set it up from the parent site, your district site. So merging duplicates, this is something I do once a year. So when you have multiple venues or organizers or things like that you're entering in when you create these, a lot of them will be the same thing. They'll all use the same gymnasium as a venue, or at least for that school. And over time, different spelling, spacing, stuff like that of those venues can actually get to where you have multiple duplicates of the same thing. And you'll want to run this merge once a year to be able to get that going. Now, there's a couple of settings that will actually help you guys out moving forward that will help you when you're entering in events not to set a time zone for each individual one. And that's where it pulls dynamically from your WordPress settings. And that's in a different spot. So now that we've looked real quick over the general settings of the events calendar here, and in a sense, we've got most of these for this general tutorial. But if you want to change some stuff within the general settings of WordPress, you're going to go down to settings here in your dashboard, and you're going to hover over general, and you're going to scroll to the bottom of this page. Now, the bottom of this page will actually show your time zone, date format, time format, and the week starts on. And these are things that may require a little bit of editing, especially the time zone and the week starts on. Now, the time zone, you can check the different time zones in here, but I would suggest you go with a city. That way it follows the daylight savings time changes. If you use a UTC format, -3 or -6 or whatever your time zone is, that doesn't always take into account time zone settings for daylight savings time, so you'll have to go in and edit those at the proper time. But if you use a city for your time zone, that actually takes into account the daylight savings time that city runs on. So being in the central time zone, I'm choosing Chicago here. Date format, this is default setup, and this is actually how I like it, so I'm going to keep the default setup just like that for the date format. And then week starts on. Now I think the default setup for week starts on is on a Monday, and that's going to display in your main events calendar as well as any widgets or Divi calendars that you add in the future. It will have that first day being on Monday. Well, in my head and what I'm used to seeing is that week starting on Sunday, so I go and change this over here in Sunday and then save changes. Now, this will help not to have to enter in this information, or at least the time zone, each time you enter in an event. It saves a little bit of time moving forward, and as you create more events, well, it saves things like the venue, the organizer name, things like that as you go. So events get faster and faster as you add them if you're not importing them to begin with. Well, I hope this, guys, will help you if you're setting up the events calendar for Modern Tribe on your school WordPress website. As always, like and subscribe if you're working on a WordPress project for your school, campus, or district. There's a wealth of information here. I appreciate you. Have a good day.